Hello, so this is going to be a demo about the progress we've made on supporting single host mode on Kubernetes. So single host mode is a way of exposing workspaces inside Chair such that they are not exposed on their own subdomains, but instead are exposed just on the subpath of the URL of the Chair server. This used to work in the past, but because the Nginx ingress controller that exposes the ingresses inside Kubernetes cluster has made some incompatible changes. This is no longer working in versions of Minikube 1.0 and up, or in any Kubernetes cluster that is using Nginx ingress controller version 0.22 or newer. So just to show you what is possible now, this is Che instance deployed using this using our Helm chart and with a bunch of settings, and the most important one is this one. So it's a port. It started with the single host server strategy. So we have a workspace running in here, and if I try to open it, it correctly starts loading, which it did not before at all, and it will also start up reasonably nicely. The reason why I'm saying reasonably is that if we show the welcome screen, you can see that it doesn't look the way it should, and that's because it uses absolute URLs to reference the style sheet, the logo, or the script that backs these links. And this is not supported in the single host mode, because single host mode basically translates the URLs accessible from outside into URLs that are visible on the inside the URL cluster, and anything that is generated on the server side, i.e. within the cluster, any URL that is any absolute URL that is generated within the cluster will not work outside of it. Hence, this error, badly looking welcome screen. But this is not just the case of the welcome plugin, but also of any user application that tries to use such server-side generated absolute URLs. Those will just not work, and that's the limitation of the single host mode of Che. Just to show you, if I inspect this and just change the URL to be relative, you can see that things start to work slowly. Yeah, just to show you that this is indeed the Thea is shown on the same domain as the whole Che server UI. I will just open the Thea UI in its standalone tab, and you can see that it's the same domain, but on a weirdly looking subpath that just corresponds to the server running Thea. So the limitations of the current implementation. First, it's not merged yet. We are in the final rounds of code review. And second, as I explained already with the welcome plugin, the limitation of the single host mode is that it cannot support server generated absolute URLs. So basically, if the application had some kind of server and it used absolute URL generated on the server side, and you wanted to use our preview of the application and clicked on a link, that link wouldn't work. So for the future work in the next sprints, we want to support this also in the multi-user mode. So if you can see, I'm using a single user mode here. Sorry. So the one without users and without any authentication. And that's because multi-user mode with the authentication is not working in the single host server strategy at all at the moment. We have a plan to implement that, but if we've not had enough time to do that because it's quite involved and it requires changes to both chess server and JWT proxy that is used for authenticating requests. Yeah, and obviously we need to fix our plugins on the Chethia side to not use absolute URLs anywhere. Yeah, so that's it from the high level. If you can pause the video now. If there's no time, I can go into some details of how this is implemented. So basically we have, when a new workspace is started, we create a bunch of ingresses to expose the URLs that should be of the components that are running within that workspace from outside, from the IDE. And for that we use this configuration property of Che, which basically sets up the annotation that should be present on the ingresses so that they work. So we set the ingress class to nginx so that the nginx ingress controller is used, and a bunch of stuff and a bunch of other stuff. And the most important thing is this read-write target, which basically says how we should rewrite the URLs visible on outside of the cluster into URLs that are working within the cluster. So we are using this property, but also this is the new thing. We need to somehow tell the ingress controller that certain paths of or certain parts of the path of the ingress should be kept also within the URL that is visible within the cluster, and it's done using this path transform property. This is like a placeholder for the path to a server that is running given component, and this regular expression is basically anything after that path should be kept and forwarded using this placeholder to the URL within the cluster. This is the way the new versions of the nginx controller support this, and in the past this was a little bit simpler, but not that powerful, I guess, and that's why they made the incompatible change. So in our Che properties file, which defines these configuration properties, we have a lengthy description now of how this works and what should be done when. And also there's the documentation on the new property. And yeah, we should be transferring this into documentation. That's another part that is yet to be done. And also maybe we should think about testing this on another ingress controller than just nginx. This has not been done yet, and I would appreciate if QE could help me set this all up. And that is really all. Thanks for your attention, and see you next time.